Hey guys, it's Mike from Backyard RC, and thanks for joining us in the next part of our video covering series. Today we're going to be doing this fillet here and taking care of this area, getting ready to cover the sides of our model as we go forward. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and check out the videos leading up to this stage. So let's go ahead here and get started, guys. As always, the first thing I'm going to do is wipe the area we're going to cover down with our tack cloth here. Get any remaining balsa dust and dirt out of the way. I've already gone ahead and cut myself a strip of covering I'm going to use in this area. I've left it long on both ends, as well as I'm going to trim off the excess after so it's a little wider than I'll need as well. A lot of people will cover this area different ways, multiple pieces, so on. I'm going to do it all in one shot here, which might not be the best way, but I find it works well for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First thing I'm doing is tacking that covering just along that fillet. Working it towards the back as I come along here. Just going to keep going along that fillet. You can see it seals down in there quite nicely to start. As we get up here, we're going to get into the tricky area where it starts to curve. So I'm going to use heat to my advantage to allow me to work the wrinkles out and stretch it where I want. So slowly moving forward. Again, right in the fillet to start. Got a little wrinkle back here, so I'm going to come back and work that out. Just work it towards the outsides. I'm using the curve of my iron side just to get into that curve, match the fuselage. So as I'm working it forward here, pulling on my covering to try and stretch out those wrinkles. This is where some people might use multiple pieces. I think with covering, guys, I'm not going to say there's really a right and a wrong way. It all comes down to what you find works well for you. Now, as I get to the front where it really wants to drop off, I'm not going to have a choice but to slit the covering, and that's going to allow me to fold it in the crack without getting the wrinkle. So, right here, off of the tip of the fillet, just going to go ahead and put a little slice. I'm going to do a couple of those along the way here. That's going to allow me to be able to do it in one piece rather than a bunch of small separate pieces. So let's work up towards the front here. As I'm going around this corner, we're going to start to develop some wrinkles. So I'm going to work those towards the outside and try and get those out as we go. What we're doing here is we're shrinking and stretching or covering all in one. Shrinking it in the seam and stretching it around this outside edge here to get the corner. Working out our wrinkles that develop towards the edges. Now, as I come up to the very front, I'm actually going to put a slit in this side here. I'm going to have to change my knife in a minute. Again, this just allows me to get all my corners how I want them. And later on, down the line, all those edges are going to be getting covered, so we don't have to worry. So we come right into the front here. I'm actually going to go over to my little trim iron. That's going to help me work this very front corner. This is the hardest part to do. Working out those couple of wrinkles that have developed now to leave us with our nice smooth finish. You can see I'm kind of just using the tip of the iron to roll back and forth, work those bubbles towards the outside. Leave ourselves a nice finish we want. So there we go. We're sealed on our edge the whole way down. We have a bunch of excess we're going to trim off and clean that up a little bit later on. But now let's start sealing our covering up towards the fillet here. Or towards the outside, I should say. Just worked right in the fillet. Got all our covering where we wanted it. So you can see now, just sealing all our covering 90 degrees to how we just were basically. Right up towards the lip. So now we're going to need to be able to wrap this over the edge, and similarly to the front where we have our curves, we're going to have to put a couple cuts just to allow us to make our edge how we want. As well as down on the tip of that fillet. And you can see we can now wrap our covering over when we get to that. So I'm going to take care of this front to start off. What I need to do is right at the spot where the fillet starts is make another cut like so. Allow us to wrap all our covering into the spots that we want. So Just going to start to wrap that over the edge like so. Sealing that piece down. Most of this is going to get trimmed off after the fact. And we're going to come up and start to work it over our edge here. Using heat and some pulling tension to stretch it and wrap it over those edges. I'm going to do that the whole way back now. Just use my trim iron the whole way here as I go along. Seals down to this small edge nicely on the side. Now I'm just working the other edge out. I'm not going to seal it right to the tip yet, as some of this is still going to get trimmed. Now, similar to the top at the start of the fillet on the bottom here, I'm going to have to make a little slit. That's going to allow me to wrap that piece. So that's a compound curve. Let's add one more little slit to make it wrap nicely. That should wrap over and then we can seal that down. So let's go back to our trim iron for a minute and just start to work on this piece. Again, using our heat to actually stretch our covering over those curves. Same thing with this one. Use our heat and stretch it over. Working those couple wrinkles away from the edge. Like so. So we're ready to trim this piece of covering up now. I'm just going to lay my ruler where I want to trim it. Leave myself some overlap. Just like that. Let's go ahead and peel that up. There we go.
On this end, I don't need all this overhang, so we'll trim that up.
Now we'll seal that down. And come back and seal this edge down. Not going to seal the front down just yet. We'll go over there and trim it up. Now we'll seal that down. So the last thing I'm going to do here, guys, is roll the model upside down and seal this over. That's going to keep our covering in place. So let's go ahead and do this quick. Seal that covering up in the wing saddle like so. Probably actually use my big iron for this. Save a little time. Little iron was actually working a little easier in there, so let's go back to it. I have this little iron a little hotter, so it's sticking everything down a little quicker, making my life a little easier for this. So we're going to go ahead and trim this up now. Just on the top of our fillet, I'm going to trim off our extra covering. And then we'll seal that over the bottom. So let's seal that down now. Pressing on those edges and making them disappear. And creating our nice fuel-proof. There we go. And the final step's just going to be trim up all this covering within the wing saddle. All our excess here. So let's do that quick. Make sure all our edges are sealed down one last time. And there we're left with our covered wing fillet. We're ready to move on to the next step, which is going to be covering our fuselage sides. The reflection makes it look like there's some changes in it, but overall it is nice and smooth, so I'm quite happy with that. We did it all in one piece. That might not be how you choose to do it, but overall it worked out well for me. So thanks for watching. Mike from Backyard RC, guys. Again, don't forget to subscribe to stay tuned for the next video. We're going to get the sides of these fuselage covered for you here in the next couple days or so. So stay tuned, and if you guys are working on projects at home, have fun and keep them going.